I've spent half my life under steel beams, lifting weights, carrying loads most men wouldn't touch. But nothing felt heavier than the piece of paper my wife pushed across the table last December. She wanted me to sign it, to take legal responsibility for a child I already knew wasn't mine. I wasn't guessing. I wasn't paranoid. I had the test results in my pocket, the black and white proof that the baby she carried belonged to another man. And yet, she smiled at me like I was the fool in the room, like I'd be too weak, too loyal, too blind to say no. That night I realized something. The real weight in a man's life isn't the iron he lifts or the shifts he grinds through. It's betrayal. And betrayal doesn't just break you, it asks you to pay for your own destruction. That's where my story begins. The factory whistle cut through the Detroit night like a blade, echoing across a sky heavy with December snow. 15 years of night shifts at Motor City Steel, and that sound usually meant one thing: another day survived. But that night, it felt like a funeral bell. I walked out with the others, steam rising from our mouths, boots crunching on ice. Men talked about football, overtime, the price of gas. I didn't hear any of it. My hand stayed in my jacket pocket, fingers pressed against the folded DNA results, as if the paper itself was burning. I'd known the truth for months. My gut told me. My friends told me. Hell, even her eyes told me. But holding that proof, it was different. Cold. Final. Snowflakes stuck to my lashes as I headed for the truck, and I wondered, was I going home to a wife or to a stranger who'd been planning my ruin? By the time I pulled into our driveway, the snow had covered the hood of my truck. Our little two-story house sat in silence, lights glowing warm against the cold. You'd think warmth meant comfort. Not anymore. I hung my coat by the door, boots leaving wet marks across the entryway. From the kitchen, I heard the soft clatter of keys. Emily sat at the table, her laptop open, face lit blue by the screen. Not a glance up, not a smile, not even a pause. Just fingers flying, nails clicking, like I wasn't even there. "You're late," she said finally, still staring at the monitor. No kiss, no question about my day, nothing. I lowered myself into my father's old recliner, springs groaning under my weight. That chair had once meant home, safety. Tonight it felt like a witness to my humiliation. I wanted to speak, to confront, but instead I asked myself, was silence safer? She finally closed the laptop, leaned back, and rested one hand on her swollen belly, like she was rehearsing for an audience. Her eyes flicked up at me with that polished confidence she carried from the office. "Chad thinks we should start looking for a bigger place," she said, as if dropping his name into our living room was as natural as talking about groceries. My jaw tightened. Chad Whitmore, sales director at her company. Gym-built, smooth-talking, the kind of man who never worked a night shift in his life. I'd shaken his hand twice and hated him both times. "Chad thinks," I repeated slowly, fighting to keep my voice even. "Interesting. I didn't realize he was paying our mortgage." Emily's smile was faint, sharp. "That's exactly the problem, Jack. You're still thinking like we're broke college kids." Her words stung, but I kept my hands folded, my anger hidden. Inside, though, something colder than winter was building. She stood by the window, arms crossed, watching snow fall like it was more interesting than me. Her voice carried that careful tone she used at work, the one meant to sound reasonable while cutting you to pieces. "Maybe we need to be honest about who we are now," she said. "People change. Marriages evolve." I frowned, not sure where she was headed. Then she turned, soft smile on her lips, hand still on her belly like a prop. "Maybe we should think about being open." The word hit me harder than any punch I'd ever taken. Open. Like our vows were just suggestions, like loyalty was old-fashioned. My chest tightened, fists clenching in my lap. "So that's your solution? Invite other men into our marriage?" She tilted her head, calm as ice. "Other couples make it work. They're honest. They thrive." Honest? My throat burned with rage. This wasn't honesty. It was betrayal dressed as progress. The word open rattled around my skull until I couldn't hold back anymore. I rose from the recliner, slow, deliberate, like every muscle was heavy with ice. "How long?" My voice was low, steady, but it carried the weight of everything I already knew. She blinked. What? I took a step closer. My eyes didn't leave hers. How long have you been sleeping with him? The silence stretched. Her face flickered, surprise, calculation, then something like resignation. Finally, she drew in a sharp breath, chin lifting with defiance. Does it matter? The room tilted. My stomach turned cold. It matters to me. Her eyes softened into that practiced mask of pity. 3 months. Maybe 4. I didn't plan it, Jack. It just happened. Her words landed like a hammer to the chest. My gut had been screaming it for months, but hearing her admit it out loud, that was the real betrayal. Her confession hung in the air, 3 little months that felt like a death sentence. My pulse hammered in my ears, but I forced the next words out, slow and sharp as broken glass. And the baby? I asked. Is it mine? For the first time that night, her face went pale. She took a step back, one hand gripping the counter like she needed support. Of course it's yours, she said quickly, eyes darting away. How can you even ask that? I laughed, cold, bitter. Because the timing's just about perfect, isn't it? 4 months ago, you were suddenly working late, team-building trips, coming home smelling like cologne that wasn't mine. Her jaw clenched. You're being paranoid. I reached into my pocket, fingers brushing the folded paper that had burned there all night. Paranoid? I whispered. No, Emily. I already know the answer. Her eyes widened. For the first time, I saw fear. My hand came out of my pocket holding the folded papers, the ones I'd carried like a stone in my chest for weeks. I laid them on the kitchen table, the edge brushing her laptop. Go ahead, I said, my voice steady, colder than the snow outside. Read it. She stared at the papers like they were a weapon, like touching them might burn her fingers. Slowly she reached out, opened the fold, and scanned the lines. Her face drained of color, her lips parting but no sound coming out. That polished corporate confidence she wore like armor. It cracked in an instant. You tested the baby? She whispered, voice trembling. I leaned forward, eyes locked on hers. No, Emily. I tested the baby you're carrying, the one you wanted me to sign papers for, the one you've been lying about for months. She pressed a hand to her mouth, staring at me, stunned. For once, she had no script. She stood frozen, clutching that paper like it might rewrite itself if she stared long enough. But I wasn't finished. I pulled my phone from my jacket, scrolled, and hit play. Her own voice filled the kitchen, sharp and smug. He's so pathetic, honestly, asking if I need help with prenatal vitamins when he doesn't even know they're not for his kid. Then Carly's laugh, her best friend, chiming in. That's brutal. I love it. He'll never leave you. He's too much of a good guy. I stopped the recording and looked at her. That was last Tuesday. Lunch at that new place on Jefferson. You remember? Her face crumpled, eyes wide with horror. You recorded me? No, I said coldly. I recorded the woman who was laughing at me behind my back. And that woman is my wife. The room went dead quiet, except for the sound of her breathing, shallow, panicked, cornered. Her composure finally shattered. The laptop slammed shut and she stumbled toward me, tears streaking her face. Jack, please, she cried, clutching my arm. You don't understand. I didn't mean for it to happen. We can fix this. We can still have a family. I shook her off, the sound of her sobs ringing louder than the factory whistle ever had. My eyes drifted to the hallway closet where a single duffel bag sat waiting, packed days ago, maybe weeks in my mind. I grabbed it, the zipper already straining from the weight of clothes and quiet decisions. Don't go, she begged, voice cracking. Don't throw away 20 years over a mistake. I paused at the bottom of the stairs, duffel in hand. Which part was the mistake, Emily? Sleeping with him, getting pregnant, or getting caught? Her face hardened through the tears, but I didn't stay to see more. I walked out into the snow, finally free enough to feel the cold. Corktown smelled like old brick and beer-soaked wood, the kind of neighborhood that had outlived its glory but refused to die. I parked by a corner store, duffel bag on the seat beside me and stared at the faded building where Mike lived. He'd told me years ago, if you ever need a place, you know where the spare key is. Tonight, I finally took him up on it. The stairwell creaked under my boots as I climbed, every step echoing the weight of the last 2 hours. By the time I knocked, my throat was raw from holding back words I'd never wanted to say. The door swung open, and there he was, Mike Donovan, old friend, cigarette dangling, eyes sharp behind wire frames. He looked at the bag, then at my face. "So, she finally did it, huh?" I didn't answer. I just stepped inside, the warmth of his cluttered apartment wrapping around me like a confession. Mike's place smelled like coffee grounds and cigarette smoke, the kind of air that clung to your jacket even after you left. He poured me a cup without asking, slid it across the scarred table, then lit another smoke. He studied me for a long moment, eyes narrowed like he was reading more than my face. Finally he asked, almost casual, "So tell me, Jack, what kind of man are you really?" The words landed harder than Emily's confession. I'd come here for a couch and a roof, not a mirror. "I'm a good man," I muttered. "I've always tried to be." Mike chuckled, not kindly. "Good? Look where good's gotten you. She played you, her boyfriend laughed at you, and now you're sleeping on my couch." He tapped ash into a chipped mug. I wanted to argue, to defend myself, but the truth sat heavy in my gut. For the first time, I didn't know what kind of man I was anymore. Mike's words hit me, and for a moment I couldn't even look at him. My mind went backward. 15 years, maybe more. 15 years of sweat and steel, graveyard shifts at Motor City, coming home when the sun was already rising. I remember counting change in a coffee can so Emily could buy her textbooks. I remember skipping vacations, skipping dinners out, telling myself it was all worth it if she got her degree. And she did. She climbed fast, faster than either of us imagined. Polished heels, business suits, an office title that meant more money than I'd ever see on my paycheck. Every promotion she earned, I told myself I was proud, and I was. But somewhere along the way, pride turned into distance. She started looking at me like I was still in that factory, still stuck at the bottom, while she was flying. 15 years I carried her dreams, and the moment she outgrew me, she dropped me. The coffee in front of me went cold, untouched, while my thoughts burned hotter than the cigarette smoke hanging in the air. The truth that hurt the most wasn't that Emily had betrayed me. It was that somewhere along the way, I'd betrayed myself. I stopped dreaming when she started. I stopped fighting for anything that wasn't her future. Every dollar I saved, every overtime shift I took, every quiet sacrifice, I thought it was love. But it was surrender. Piece by piece, I let go of the man I was supposed to become. I told myself it was noble, that good men sacrifice. But now I was sitting in a borrowed chair, with a borrowed roof over my head, realizing good had turned me invisible. The betrayal cut deep, but the real wound was older. I hadn't just lost my wife. I'd lost myself years before she ever left. Mike crushed out his cigarette, leaned forward, and fixed me with that hard stare of his, the kind that didn't let you look away. "You've spent your whole life trying to be a good man," he said. "And what did it get you? Sleepless nights, a broken back, and a wife who treated you like a paycheck. Good men get walked on, Jack. Good men end up broke, bitter, and forgotten." I tried to speak, but he cut me off with a jab of his finger. "Don't just be good. Be effective. You think Emily didn't plan this? She drew up the playbook months ago. You were fighting a war without even knowing it." His words hit me harder than any punch. For years, I thought being good was enough. But sitting there in that smoke-stained kitchen, I realized he was right. If I wanted to survive this, I couldn't just be good anymore. I had to fight smart. That night, lying on Mike's lumpy couch with the city noise leaking through the thin walls, I couldn't sleep. His words kept circling in my head. Don't just be good, be effective. For months, maybe years, I'd been living like a man on defense, reacting, enduring, waiting for things to get better on their own. But they never did, because I never made them. I stared at the ceiling and thought about every hour I'd worked, every dollar I'd saved, every chance I'd passed up to keep Emily comfortable. And for what? To be replaced? To be laughed at? To raise another man's child? Something shifted inside me, like a gear finally clicking into place. I couldn't change what she'd done, but I could decide what happened next. For the first time in months, I didn't feel like prey. I felt like a man sharpening his teeth, and that terrified me and thrilled me. By morning, the fog in my head had burned off into something sharper. I sat at Mike's table with a notebook, the kind I used to keep overtime hours in, and started writing. Not numbers this time, plans. Step 1, evidence. Emily's lies were slick, but paper and recordings didn't lie. I already had the paternity test and one recording. I'd need more. Emails, conversations, proof she couldn't twist away from. Step 2, a lawyer. Not just any attorney, but someone who knew the battlefield of divorce and paternity law. If Emily wanted a war, I'd bring one with rules she didn't control. Step 3, myself. I'd let my body go soft, my mind dull. That ended now. If rage was fuel, I'd burn it into muscle and focus. Boxing, training, anything to remind myself I was still a man capable of fighting. For the first time in years, I wasn't drifting. I had a direction and a target. The bathroom light buzzed overhead, harsh against the cracked tiles. I hadn't really looked at myself in months, maybe years. Now, standing in front of that mirror, I finally did. The man staring back didn't look like the one I thought I was. My shoulders were slumped, my eyes ringed with exhaustion, my jaw softened by too many late-night beers after too many shifts. I looked less like a husband, less like a fighter, and more like a ghost who'd let the world walk through him. I gripped the sink until my knuckles turned white. This was the man Emily had learned to disrespect, the man she thought she could control, the man she thought would sign away his life without a fight. Not anymore. "It's time to change," I whispered to the reflection, voice steady. For the first time in years, the man in the mirror didn't look defeated. He looked dangerous. Monday, I took the early bus downtown and rode it past half-empty towers and construction cranes that never seemed to move. Susan Carter's office sat on the 12th floor, glass and quiet, the opposite of everything I knew. She was in her 50s, silver hair pulled back, eyes that didn't waste time. I slid the DNA test across her desk, then cued the recording on my phone. She listened without blinking. "You did one smart thing already," she said. "You didn't sign anything." I nodded. She tried. Hard. Susan tapped a pen against a yellow legal pad. "Here's the path. File for divorce, contest paternity, freeze joint accounts you can legally protect, and document everything. That recording may not be admissible in court, but it's leverage. Use it in negotiation, not litigation. What about the house? Community asset. We'll push for a clean break. No spousal support either way." I exhaled for what felt like the first time in days. "Jack," she added, meeting my eyes, "don't take the bait. Be calm, be strategic. Let her make the mistakes." Susan leaned back in her chair, tapping the edge of the DNA test with her pen. Her eyes were sharp, the kind that missed nothing. "You know how close you came to ruining your life, Jack?" she asked. "If you'd signed those acknowledgement papers, it wouldn't matter what the DNA said. In Michigan, once you sign, you're legally bound. You'd be paying for that child until he's 18, maybe longer, even with proof." The words hit me like a second betrayal. Emily hadn't just lied. She'd nearly trapped me forever. Susan continued, her tone calm but cutting. "The fact that you didn't sign, that's your lifeline. With this test, with the recordings, you've got leverage. You can walk away clean if you play this right." For the first time since the nightmare began, I felt something stir in my chest. Hope. Not much, not enough to feel safe, but enough to realize the fight wasn't over, and maybe, just maybe, I could win. The gym smelled like sweat, leather, and old blood. No chrome machines, no mirrors, just concrete floors, heavy bags, and men who looked like they'd survived more than they'd trained. This wasn't the kind of place you joined for fitness. This was where you came to bleed until you earned respect. Tommy Sullivan spotted me the second I walked in. Stocky, scarred, built like a wall. His handshake felt like steel cable. "You ever fight before?" he asked, sizing me up. "High school wrestling, nothing serious," he smirked. "Then what do you want from me?" I thought about Emily, about Chad, about the laughter in that recording. My fists clenched on instinct. I want to learn how to hurt someone without going to jail. Tommy barked a laugh, tossed me a pair of gloves. Boxing then. Step up. Let's see if you've got more than anger in you. For the first time in weeks, I felt alive. The gloves felt awkward at first, heavy and stiff, but Tommy didn't care. He pointed to the bag and barked, "Hit it." So I did. The first punch rattled my shoulder, the second nearly buckled my wrist. But I kept swinging, each strike harder than the last. Every lie Emily told, every smirk on Chad's face, every sleepless night, it all poured through my fists into that bag. My lungs burned, sweat stung my eyes, and still I kept going. Tommy's voice cut through the haze. Again, again, don't stop. By the time I peeled the gloves off, my knuckles were raw, blood seeping through the wraps. I should have felt pain. Instead, I felt release. Tommy looked me over, a hint of respect in his eyes. "You've got rage. That's fuel, but fuel without control, that'll burn you alive." I nodded, chest heaving. For the first time in months, I wasn't just enduring, I was fighting. Tommy tossed me a towel, his arms crossed like he'd seen this story 100 times. I wiped the blood and sweat off my face, still gasping for air. "You've got fire, Jack," he said. "But fire without control, that's just a damn house burning down." I looked at my swollen knuckles, skin split open. The pain throbbed, but it felt earned. "Don't hit because you're angry," Tommy continued. "Hit because it's the right punch at the right time. Anger makes you sloppy. Sloppy gets you hurt. Learn to fight smart, and you'll stop being the victim." His words stung more than my hands. All my life I'd fought angry at bills, at dead-end shifts, at being left behind. Maybe that was why I kept losing. I nodded slowly. "Then teach me." Tommy grinned, half approval, half challenge. "Come back Tuesday. We'll start turning that rage into something useful." The next morning, my arms ached so bad I could barely lift a coffee mug. My knuckles throbbed every time I curled a fist. And yet, under all that pain, something else pulsed. Strength. It had been years since I felt it. Years of letting my body go soft, of trading muscle for overtime paychecks and empty sleep. But after one night in that gym, I could feel pieces of myself I thought were gone. My lungs had fire again. My shoulders had weight. My heart, it beat with purpose. I stood in front of the mirror in Mike's cramped bathroom, flexed my swollen hands, and almost smiled. For the first time in a long time, I didn't just see a man broken by betrayal. I saw a man who could fight his way back. The bruises and blood were proof. I wasn't done. Not yet. Emily had taken a lot from me, but she hadn't taken my will to rise. 2 days later, my phone lit up with her name. For a second, my chest tightened the way it used to. Then I answered. Emily's voice was soft, almost sweet, too sweet. "Jack, we don't have to make this ugly," she said. "We can work something out." I stayed silent. She took it as permission to keep talking. "Look, maybe you don't contest paternity. Maybe you help raise the baby. We can stay married, or at least keep things civil. Everyone wins." I clenched the phone so hard my knuckles ached. She wasn't apologizing. She wasn't asking forgiveness. She was negotiating, like I was just another contract on her desk. "You want me to raise another man's child," I said flatly. "I want us to be adults," she countered. "Think about the future, not the past." My throat burned with rage, but I forced my voice steady. "Don't worry, Emily. I'm documenting everything." While she kept talking, I slid my thumb across the screen and hit record. Her voice flowed through the speaker, calm and polished, like she was closing a business deal. "If you just sign the papers, Jack, everything will be easier. You'll still have a place in the baby's life. We can keep the house, keep the peace. Nobody has to get hurt." I stared at the wall of Mike's apartment, jaw tight. She sounded so reasonable, so rational, like betraying me was just a bump in the road that could be negotiated away. I let her finish, gave her nothing but silence, then ended the call. I replayed the recording once, hearing every calculated word. Proof. More proof. I saved the file under a simple title, Emily Deal, 12/22. Another nail for the coffin she was building around herself. She thought I was still the man who'd fold under pressure. She had no idea I was collecting ammunition. When I stopped by the house to grab more clothes, Emily had left her laptop open on the counter. Same password it had always been. Our anniversary date. She never thought I'd check. I sat down, heart pounding, and scrolled. There it was, an email chain between her and Chad. I read line after line, each one cutting deeper than the last. Once Jack signs the papers, it's locked in. He'll be on the hook no matter what. Don't worry, he's too passive to fight back. Another message. Emily telling her sister how the timing of the pregnancy didn't quite add up, but it didn't matter. Jack would believe what she told him. My hands trembled, not from fear but from rage. Every word was proof she saw me not as a husband, not as a man, but as a safety net. I forwarded the emails to myself, closed the laptop, and finally, I smiled. The deeper I dug, the uglier it got. Email after email laid out their plan like blueprints for a prison I was meant to build with my own hands. If he signs before the due date, support is guaranteed. Even if he finds out later, it won't matter legally. Jack's steady, he won't fight. That's why this works. Chad replied with bullet points like he was drafting a sales pitch. Mortgage buyouts, joint accounts, life insurance. They weren't just having an affair, they were designing a trap. I wasn't a husband anymore. I was an investment. I leaned back, the glow of the screen cold against my face. The woman I'd sacrificed 15 years for had turned me into a line item. The man she'd chosen over me saw me as nothing but leverage. My stomach churned, but my jaw set hard. They thought I was predictable, weak. They were wrong. I wasn't their victim anymore. I was becoming their problem. I closed the laptop and sat there in the dark kitchen, the hum of the refrigerator the only sound. For weeks I'd felt hollow, gutted, like a man stripped of his dignity. But reading those emails, seeing their arrogance in black and white, something changed. My lips curled into a smile. Small at first, then sharper. They thought they'd written the ending of my story, but all they'd done was hand me the script. Every word was leverage. Every lie was evidence. Every calculation they made had just armed me with the truth. For the first time since this nightmare began, I wasn't choking on betrayal. I was breathing strategy. Emily and Chad wanted to play games with contracts and lies. Fine, but I wasn't the pawn anymore. I zipped up my duffel, walked out into the cold Detroit night and whispered to myself, "Your move." And for the first time, I was looking forward to their next mistake. That night, sitting behind the wheel of my truck, I felt the kind of calm I hadn't known in months. The fear was gone. The begging, the confusion, the sleepless nights, they'd burned off like morning fog. All that remained was clarity. This wasn't survival anymore. This was war, and war had rules. Step 1, expose their lies. Step 2, bleed them of control. Step 3, make them realize the man they underestimated was the one they should have feared. I wasn't interested in shouting matches or broken dishes. I wasn't going to give Emily the satisfaction of seeing me unravel. No, my revenge would be quiet, careful, undeniable. As I drove through the frozen streets of Detroit, I laid it out in my head like a chessboard. Every move mattered now. They had started this game thinking I was a pawn, but pawns don't stay pawns forever. Sometimes they reach the other side and become something else entirely. The next morning, I sat at Mike's cluttered kitchen table with a cup of burnt coffee and opened my phone. The emails I'd forwarded from Emily's laptop glared back at me like loaded bullets. I drafted a new message to Susan Carter and attached every file, Emily's words, Chad's replies, the timestamps that proved intent. Before I hit send, I read them one more time. Each line dripped with arrogance. Each word tightened the noose they'd tied for themselves. My thumb hovered, then tapped send. It felt different from swinging at a heavy bag or shouting into the night. This wasn't anger, it was precision. Quiet, controlled, undeniable. A minute later, Susan's reply came back. Got them. Very useful. This changes things, Jack. Stay calm. We're building your case. I put the phone down, leaned back, and let out a slow breath. For the first time, I wasn't reacting. I was striking first. Emails were good, but I knew better than to lean on just one weapon. People can spin words, judges can dismiss context. What I needed was something no one could argue with. Proof in pictures, dates, times. So I called in a name Mike gave me, a guy who'd done surveillance work for unions back when strikes turned dirty. His office was a dingy room above a pawn shop, blinds half closed, smell of stale cigars in the air. He didn't ask many questions, just listened, nodded, and quoted a price that made my stomach twist. I paid it anyway. Within 24 hours, Chad and Emily weren't just a betrayal in my memory. They were marks under someone else's lens. Restaurants, lunch breaks, hotel rooms, every move logged, every lie documented. For the first time in weeks, I slept easy. Not because I trusted the world, because now the world was finally watching them instead of me. The investigators' first drop came in a plain envelope. Photos, receipts, and notes scribbled in block letters. I spread them out across Mike's table like cards in a rigged game. Most of it was what I expected. Dinners, hotel stays, late-night texts. But one detail caught my eye. Chad had a routine. 3 nights a week, he hit an upscale gym in Birmingham, the kind of place where executives flex their egos as much as their muscles. The photos showed him laughing with a circle of younger guys, towels slung over his shoulders, designer gear hanging off his body like armor. The notes called him loud, cocky, center of attention. None of that surprised me. What mattered was consistency. He was predictable, and predictable men can be cornered. I stared at his smirk frozen in one of the pictures, the kind of smile that had been aimed at my wife for months. My fists tightened. The bag at Tommy's gym had taught me one thing. I was ready to hit something real. I signed up for a guest pass through a buddy of Mike's who knew someone at the front desk. Nobody paid me any mind. I was just another guy in sweats, keeping my head down. But my eyes never left Chad. He strutted through that place like he owned it, spotting buddies at the bench press, slapping backs, laughing too loud. Everything about him screamed confidence, the kind that came from never being told no. I kept my distance, watched what machines he favored, when he came in, when he left. He always parked in the same corner spot, always left around the same time. Predictable. A couple times our eyes met across the room. He glanced right past me, didn't recognize me outside the context of Emily's kitchen. That suited me fine. I wasn't ready to move yet. This was about patience, about knowing his rhythm before I broke it. Predators don't rush. They circle first. That Thursday night, the air in Birmingham was sharp enough to cut. I waited in the far corner of the parking lot, engine off, breath fogging against the windshield. I knew Chad's routine by heart now. 45 minutes of weights, 15 on the treadmill, 10 in the locker room. He was nothing if not consistent. When the glass doors swung open, he appeared just like I pictured. Fresh clothes, protein shake in hand, ego written all over his stride. He didn't notice me until I stepped out of the shadows. Chad Whitmore? My voice carried low, steady, the way Tommy had told me to throw a punch, controlled. He froze mid-step, eyes narrowing as recognition dawned. Jack? What the hell are you doing here? I closed the distance slowly, boots crunching on the gravel. Figured it was time we talked, man to man. His smirk faltered. For the first time I saw doubt flicker in his eyes. He tried to recover that smug grin, but his shoulders stiffened. If this is about Emily, don't drag me into your marriage problems. I stopped a few feet from him, close enough to see the sweat still clinging to his neck. My hand dipped into my jacket pocket, fingers brushing the folded papers I'd carried for weeks. This isn't about my marriage, I said quietly. It's about the baby she's carrying. His brow furrowed, confusion flickering across his face. I leaned in, let the words land heavy. Congratulations, Chad. You're going to be a father. The color drained from his cheeks. He stammered, That's not possible. I pulled the papers halfway out of my pocket, enough for him to see the official letterhead. DNA doesn't lie, I said, unlike some people. His protein shake slipped in his grip, the plastic cup crumpling. For once, Chad Whitmore didn't have a single smooth word to say. He stood there gaping, mouth opening and closing like he was searching for oxygen. I let the silence hang just long enough before I pulled out my phone. You think she's been honest with you? I asked. You really think Emily's building a life with you? His eyes darted, defensive. She told me. I pressed play. Her voice spilled into the cold night, clear as church bells. Chad thinks we're playing house. Please. He's good for my ego, but not much else. Jack's reliable. He'll take care of the baby, and I can keep Chad on the side. I watched Chad's jaw clench, his ears turning red. I let it play a few seconds longer, her laughter slicing through the parking lot, before I thumbed pause. Sounds like she's playing both of us, I said. He shook his head, whispering, she wouldn't. But the doubt was already in his eyes, and doubt is poison that spreads fast. For a moment, he just stood frozen, like the recording had short-circuited something inside him. Then his face twisted, confusion giving way to rage. He slammed the crushed protein cup against the pavement, liquid splattering across his spotless sneakers. She said that? His voice cracked, louder than he meant it to. After everything He stopped himself, fists balling at his sides. I kept my tone calm, almost gentle. She said worse, that you're just a fling, that you're too immature to be a real father, that she was going to milk you for child support while staying married to me. His nostrils flared. He looked like he wanted to swing, but the anger wasn't aimed at me anymore. You're lying, he growled, but his eyes betrayed him. Uncertainty gnawed at the edges. I slipped my phone back into my pocket. Then call her, ask her yourself, if you've got the guts. His breathing turned ragged. I'd lit the fuse. My phone lit up the next morning, Emily's name flashing across the screen. I almost let it go to voicemail, but curiosity won. Her voice was sharp, frantic. What the hell did you say to Chad? He came into my office screaming, demanding answers. He thinks I've been lying to him. I leaned back in the chair at Mike's kitchen table, letting her words spill out like fire. We just had a little conversation, man to man. Don't play games with me, Jack, she snapped. He's asking insane questions about child support and whether I'm really leaving you. He said you showed him something. I smiled into the silence, though she couldn't see it. I told him the truth, Emily. If that poisoned him against you, maybe you should ask why. She went quiet, her breathing uneven. For the first time in weeks, I felt the balance shifting. Her panic was music, and I was the one conducting it. By evening she called again, her voice different now, shaky, desperate. He left me, Jack. Chad said I'm manipulative, that he can't trust me. He walked out, and it's because of you. I stood at the window of Mike's apartment, watching snowflakes blur the streetlights. No, Emily, it's because of you. I just held up a mirror. Don't twist this, she cried. You wanted to ruin me, and you did. Are you happy now? I let the silence sit heavy before answering. No, I'm not happy, but I'm free, and that's enough. We could have fixed this, she pleaded. We could have made it work, for the baby. I turned from the glass, my voice steady, colder than I'd ever heard it. Stop pretending this is about the baby. All I ever gave you was loyalty. You gave me betrayal. That's the only truth that matters. She sniffled, broken. I ended the call. Sometimes the cleanest cuts are the deepest. The fallout came faster than I expected. 2 days later, word spread through the grapevine at her company. Chad had blown up in the middle of the office. Mike texted me first. Your boy lost it. Whole floor heard him. Later I heard the details. Chad stormed into Emily's glass-walled office, voice carrying down the hall. You played me, Emily. You told me you were leaving him. You told me this kid was ours, that we were building a future. Was that all a lie? She tried to hush him, but rage doesn't whisper. He rattled off everything, the pregnancy, the promises, the talk of child support. Co-workers froze in their chairs, pretending not to listen, but every word carved its mark. For the first time, it wasn't me under her spotlight of control. She was the one exposed, cornered, fighting shadows of her own lies, and all I had done was hand Chad the match. By noon the next day, Emily's world was bleeding out in real time. A friend in HR, someone who owed me a favor, called with the report. After Chad's blow-up, Emily had tried to salvage her image. She marched into a team meeting, insisting it was a misunderstanding. But her voice shook, her hands trembled. For a woman who had built her career on polished confidence, the cracks showed. When someone asked about the pregnancy, she snapped. "That's none of your business," she shouted, red-faced, eyes wild. The room went silent, the kind of silence that kills reputations faster than gossip. She stormed out, slamming the door so hard the blinds rattled. Half the floor saw it. HR whispered about emotional instability. Her boss, I heard, didn't look impressed. For years, she'd worn the mask of control, untouchable Emily, the strategist, the star. Now they were seeing what I'd seen in private, desperation in heels, and it was only the beginning. That night, while Emily's world spiraled at work, I was setting my own stage. Greektown, Busy streets, neon signs, the smell of garlic and grilled lamb in the air. I picked a restaurant with long tables, plenty of space for witnesses, and privacy if I needed it. I made the calls one by one. Her parents, her sister, even Chad. I told each of them the same thing. There are things you need to hear, things Emily hasn't told you. No drama, just steady truth. Curiosity did the rest. At Mike's kitchen table, I spread the evidence, the DNA test, the recordings, the emails she thought were hidden, neatly organized, labeled, undeniable. I slipped them into a folder like weapons into a sheath. This wasn't anger anymore. This was strategy. Emily thought she could keep every world compartmentalized. Me, Chad, her family, her career. Tomorrow, all those walls would fall in the same place, and I'd be the one holding the wrecking ball. The restaurant buzzed with laughter and clinking glasses, but at our corner table, the air was heavy. I sat at the head, the folder resting in front of me like a loaded weapon. One by one, the others had arrived, her parents stiff and uneasy, her sister quiet but watchful, Chad leaning back with folded arms, still raw with anger. Then Emily walked in. Her heels clicked against the tile, confident at first, until her eyes swept the table. Her face drained. What is this?" she stammered, clutching her purse like a shield. "A family meeting," I said evenly. "Everyone deserves to know the truth." She glanced at her parents, then at Chad, then back at me. Panic flickered behind her polished smile. "Jack, this isn't the place." "It's exactly the place," I cut in. My hand rested on the folder. Around the table, silence thickened. The masks were gone. Tonight, there would be no more pretending. I opened the folder slowly, the way a surgeon reveals an incision. The first sheet slid across the table, face up. Emily's mother leaned forward, squinting. Her lips parted. This is a paternity test?" I nodded. My voice was steady. "Yes, it proves the child isn't mine." Emily snatched the paper, her hands trembling. "This is private. You had no right." Her father's voice cut through, harder than I'd ever heard. "Is it true, Emily?" The room froze. She opened her mouth, closed it again. For once, words failed her. Chad leaned in, reading the page. His jaw clenched, his face reddened. "So all those late-night talks, all those promises, just lies?" Emily's eyes darted between us, searching for an escape. There wasn't one. I leaned back in my chair, calm as stone. "This isn't about me anymore. It's about the truth you've been hiding. And tonight, it's out." Emily's voice cracked. "This test doesn't prove anything. You can't trust labs, people make mistakes." She was flailing, desperate, the same polished professional now cornered like a child caught in a lie. I slid another set of papers across the table, black and white, her own words, emails between her and Chad, between her and her sister. Her sister picked one up, reading aloud before Emily could snatch it back. "Once Jack signs, he's trapped. Child support guaranteed. Chad and I can finally breathe." Her sister's hand shook. "Emily, you wrote this?" Emily's face went pale. "That's out of context. You don't understand." Chad slammed a fist on the table, rattling the glasses. "Context? You were plotting how to bleed him dry while keeping me on the hook. You used us both." Emily's father buried his face in his hands. Her mother's eyes filled with tears. And I didn't raise my voice once. The paper spoke louder than I ever could. The silence after those emails was brutal. Her mother whispered almost to herself, "My God, Emily, how could you?" Her father shook his head, jaw tight, unable to even look at her. Emily reached for them, her voice trembling. "I was just trying to do what's best for the baby." "No," her sister snapped, slamming the email back on the table. "You were doing what was best for you." Chad shoved back his chair so hard it screeched. His face was flushed with rage. "You told me you loved me. You told me you were leaving him, and the whole time you were writing this garbage, using me like a pawn." Emily stammered, "Chad, please." But he was already on his feet, tossing his napkin aside. "I'm done. With you. With this circus." He stalked out of the restaurant, the door swinging shut behind him. Emily's eyes followed him, wide and desperate. For the first time, she realized she was truly alone. For a long moment, no one moved. Emily's father sat rigid, his hands clasped so tightly his knuckles were white. Finally, he spoke, voice low but cutting. "You've disgraced yourself, Emily. And us." Her mother reached out, not to comfort her daughter, but to clutch her husband's arm, as though she needed something solid to hold on to. Tears streaked her cheeks. "We raised you better than this. How did you become so cold?" Emily's lip quivered. "I didn't mean—" "Stop," her father barked. The sound made even me flinch. He had been silent too long, carrying his disappointment like a weight, and now it broke free. "You lied to your husband. You lied to us. You planned to trick him into raising another man's child. That is not a mistake, Emily. That is a choice." She folded into herself, shoulders shaking. For the first time all evening, her confidence shattered. She wasn't the composed HR manager. She was a fallen daughter. Emily sat hunched, trembling, as the weight of her parents' words pressed down. The only one who hadn't spoken yet was her sister. She picked up another printed email, scanned it with disgust, then set it down carefully, like something toxic. "You used to call me when you needed advice," her sister said, voice calm but sharp. "You used to say I was your best friend. And now I find out you were plotting behind everyone's back, treating your husband like some fool, treating us like we'd never notice." Emily reached across the table, pleading. "Please, don't turn on me too," her sister recoiled. "I already did, Emily. The second I read your words. You didn't just betray Jack. You betrayed all of us. You turned family into a strategy." Emily's eyes filled with tears, her mascara smudging. Her sister shook her head. "I can't even look at you right now." The silence that followed was worse than shouting. Emily's shoulders slumped, her polished mask gone. She tried to hold herself upright, but the weight of every eye at the table crushed her. The confident woman who once commanded boardrooms now looked like a child scolded for lying. She whispered, almost to herself, "This isn't fair. You're all against me." Her words floated weak, empty. Her father pushed his chair back, shaking his head. Her mother turned away, unable to meet her daughter's gaze. Her sister crossed her arms, jaw clenched in silent judgment. Emily's last attempt at defiance collapsed into sobs. Her voice cracked. "I just wanted to be happy. I didn't mean for it to go this far." No one comforted her. Not her parents, not her sister, not even Chad. He was long gone. For the first time in her life, Emily had no audience, no allies, just the raw truth and the silence of a family who no longer believed her. I leaned forward, my voice steady, cutting through her sobs. "You know, Emily, for years I thought being good was enough. Work hard, provide, keep my promises. I thought if I was decent, life would reward me." Her swollen eyes met mine, desperate, searching for mercy. I didn't offer any. "But you taught me something different," I continued. "You taught me that good isn't enough, not in this world, because goodness without strength is just weakness waiting to be used. And you used me, Emily, over and over." She shook her head, whispering, "No, Jack, I raised a hand to silence her. "You wanted a lesson? Here it is. I'm not the man you can manipulate anymore. I'm done being your safety net. From here on, I'm strong enough to walk away, and strong enough to make sure the truth follows you wherever you go." The table was silent. My transformation was complete. I stood, sliding the folder of documents back under my arm. "Sign the divorce papers, Emily. Admit the truth, or I'll make sure everyone sees exactly who you are." My chair scraped against the tile as I rose. No one tried to stop me, not her parents, not her sister, and certainly not Emily. I walked past the bar, past the stunned diners who had overheard fragments of our war. My chest felt strangely light, hollow, but steady. The door swung open, and the cold night swallowed me whole. Snowflakes drifted under the yellow glow of the street lamps, silent and merciless, just like the truth I'd unleashed. Detroit in winter is brutal. The wind cut through my coat, but I welcomed it. Each step into the crunching snow felt like a step out of the wreckage of my old life. Behind me, in that restaurant, Emily's world had collapsed. Ahead of me, mine was only beginning to rebuild. As I walked down the frozen sidewalk, my phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from Mike lit the screen. "Got someone who wants to meet you. Come to the gym." For a moment, I just stood there, the snow piling on my shoulders, watching my breath fog the night. Part of me wanted to drive straight to Mike's place, collapse on his couch, and let the exhaustion consume me. But another part, the new part, knew this wasn't the time to rest. Mike wasn't the type to set up meaningless introductions. If he said someone wanted to meet me, it mattered. And right now, I needed new doors opening, not old ones slamming shut. I slipped the phone back into my coat, tightened my grip on the folder under my arm, and headed for the truck. Detroit's streets blurred past in streaks of neon and snow. For the first time in months, I wasn't dreading what came next. I was ready. The gym smelled of sweat, leather, and grit, men pounding heavy bags, grunts echoing off cinderblock walls. Mike waved me over from the corner, standing beside a man I didn't recognize. He was older, dressed too clean for this place. Dark wool coat, polished boots, sharp eyes that scanned me like a blueprint. Mike clapped my shoulder. "Jack, this is Robert Hayes. Owns a construction outfit downtown. Been looking for someone solid." Hayes extended a firm hand. His grip was calloused, not soft, which surprised me. "Mike tells me you've been through hell," he said, voice low and steady. "But he also says you're the kind of man who shows up when it counts." I shook his hand, meeting his gaze. For the first time in weeks, I felt like someone wasn't judging me for what I'd lost, but for what I could still build. Hayes gave a small nod. "Come see me Monday. Let's talk work." Monday came faster than I expected. I walked into Hayes Construction's office, the walls lined with blueprints and the faint smell of coffee and sawdust. Robert Hayes sat behind a desk stacked with contracts, glasses perched on his nose. He didn't waste time. "I don't need another laborer, Jack," he said, pushing a folder toward me. "What I need is someone who can manage crews, handle pressure, and keep men in line. You've worked steel for 15 years. You know discipline. You know what it means to show up every day." I opened the folder. Site plans, schedules, budgets. It wasn't just a job. It was responsibility, authority. "Think you can run a project?" Hayes asked. His eyes were sharp, testing me. I thought of Emily's contempt, Chad's smirk, the nights I doubted my own worth. And I felt something rise in me, certainty. "Yeah," I said. "I can handle it." Hayes smiled faintly. "Then welcome aboard." I closed the folder and set it back on the desk. My hands didn't shake this time. They were steady, strong. I looked Robert Hayes straight in the eye. "I want this," I said. "More than just the paycheck. I want to start over. I want to build something that lasts." Hayes studied me for a beat, then leaned back in his chair. "Good answer. Starting over takes guts, Jack. Most men stay broken. The few who rise, those are the ones worth betting on." I nodded, feeling a quiet fire inside. This wasn't about proving Emily wrong anymore. It wasn't even about revenge on Chad. It was about me, reclaiming my place in the world. Hayes extended his hand again. I shook it, this time not as a man asking for a chance, but as someone claiming it. "Then it's settled," he said. "Your new life begins on-site tomorrow morning." And for once, tomorrow didn't scare me. That night, I went back to Tommy's gym. The place was loud, bags thudding, gloves snapping, men grunting through exhaustion. I wrapped my hands, slid into the worn leather gloves, and stepped up to the heavy bag. Each punch landed with a crack that echoed in my bones. Left, right, hook. My knuckles screamed, sweat ran into my eyes, but I didn't stop. I wasn't picturing Emily anymore, or Chad. I was picturing the man I used to be, the one who thought being good was enough, the one who let himself get walked over. I beat him out of me, one strike at a time. The rage poured out like poison leaving the body, until all that was left was breath and muscle, pure and steady. I leaned against the bag, chest heaving, gloves dripping with sweat. For the first time in months, I felt clean. Not fixed, not healed, but clean. Word traveled fast in Detroit, even when I wasn't looking for it. A buddy from the old neighborhood mentioned seeing Emily at the grocery store, belly heavy, cart half empty, eyes hollow. Chad was gone, transferred to Chicago, they said, and she was back living with her sister, barely speaking to her parents. For years I would have rushed to fix that, to carry her burdens like they were mine. But this time, I felt nothing. Just a dull awareness, like hearing news about a stranger. She was alone, pregnant, scrambling to hold on to a life that slipped through her fingers. And maybe she thought I'd come back, like I always did, ready to forgive, ready to sacrifice. But she'd burned that bridge, until only ashes remained. I didn't gloat. I didn't celebrate her fall. I just let the truth settle in. Emily had chosen her path, and I had finally chosen mine. The wind off the Detroit River cut sharp, but up on the scaffolding I barely felt it. Below me, machines roared, steel beams clanged into place, voices barked orders and answered back. It was chaos, but the kind that builds, not destroys. I stood there with a hard hat on my head and a clipboard in my hands, watching men move because I told them to, because they trusted me to keep it all together. For the first time in years, I wasn't just punching a clock. I was leading. The weight of betrayal, the endless nights of doubt, they didn't vanish. But here, surrounded by steel and sweat, they stopped defining me. I could feel it. Life pushing back into my chest, like blood returning to a numb limb. I wasn't just surviving anymore, I was building. Not just this tower, but myself. Brick by brick, beam by beam, I was alive again. I stood on the edge of the new structure, the city spread out beneath me, gray, scarred, but still standing. Like me, 20 years I spent believing that kindness alone was strength, that if I gave enough, sacrificed enough, someone would see me as worthy. But kindness without boundaries isn't strength, it's weakness. It's permission for others to take until there's nothing left. I finally understand. I don't need to prove I deserve love. I don't need to beg for loyalty. My worth isn't measured by someone else's eyes. From today forward, I build my own value. I carry my own weight. And that truth, that unshakable truth, is the only foundation I need. So I'll leave you with this. If it were you, standing in my shoes, with betrayal burning behind you and a new life waiting ahead, would you forgive? Or would you cut clean and never look back like I did?